Hey folks, this is the kind of recap update for the week here in Washington, D.C. We'll get started with, we had a hearing with Secretary of State Blinken. I would just tell you, other than coming in to request more money for the State Department, we really don't see that guy very often, so you don't have an opportunity to ask questions. He has violated lawful congressional subpoenas and refused to come in. We wanted to talk to him about the Afghan withdrawal, among other things. I questioned him on this administration's support for Israel vis-a-vis Iran, its terrorist proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc. And that's really our only opportunity. He didn't have a lot of didn't have any great answers. There's a lot to discuss with him. And I think a lot of was discussed, not only the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, but in particular the incoming chairman, Brian Mast, talked to him about the fact that millions of your tax dollars go weekly to Afghanistan. And I see that as a problem. I see it as aiding and supporting terrorists, not only in Afghanistan, but regionally with global impact. So that was a big event for us here, and it does have far-reaching effects, and of course it affects your pocketbook because you're paying taxes for this stuff. The big thing we did legislatively this week was the National Defense Authorization Act. So that's where we authorized the spending for all the different branches of the service. Now, that's one of those bills that's moving because it's always passed, and so things get hooked to it. I voted no for a variety of reasons. One of the other things that's hooked to it is the intelligence annex or authorization for a bunch of intelligence or covert activities, for which I found a lot of problems in reading that and going through that. On the military itself, as a guy who got to serve for over 3 decades, our job in the military is to be ready to defend the nation and the nation's interest. And so we call that readiness and lethality, and that's what we need to focus on. This bill does not focus on either one. As a matter of fact, right now we're trying to verify that we're recruiting a bunch of Chinese nationals in recruiting stations that are manned by Chinese people of Chinese origin, and that's very concerning to me. It didn't do anything to address that, and the fact that we're still paying for gender reassignment surgery when we can't afford helicopters, tanks, ships, drones, etc. It needs to be done right. The House product was supportable. The Senate didn't produce a product, yet they negotiated away most of our gains in the House, so I voted no on it. There were some good things in it, but all in all, we need to get back on center, and I would have been happy to send it to the next administration and have another crack at it, but we didn't do that, so I voted no on that, and that's the reason why. Also, we did what's called WRDA, the Water Resources Development Act. So what this is your federal government dealing with things like locks and dams, things on the waterways that are for safety and to support interstate commerce. That's what it's supposed to be for. Unfortunately, this, like every other thing in Washington, has been taken over by other concerns. And so we find ourselves paying for a bunch of unrelated things that don't have anything to do with safety, don't have anything to do with locks and those type of things, and dams, and those things are deteriorating while our government is focused on things like that are basically environmental concerns. And what we find is that we double up our efforts. So in WRDA, or the Water Resources Development Act, we're paying for a bunch of renewable energy projects. This is supposed to be about locks and dams and navigation and safety on the waterways. We have other agencies that do renewable energy projects. We don't need them to be in here. And all it does is raise the cost of it and makes it duplicative. So we're spending every 100 days another $1 trillion. Part of it's in the Water Resources Development Act. That's why I voted no, because we can't duplicate things that we can't afford, number one. And then finally, just as there's a lot of things, what do we got here? Yeah, there's a lot of things in news. I'm on 4 committees, so I'm on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the House Intelligence, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Foreign Affairs, and Oversight. And so whether it's what's happening in Syria, what happened recently in South Korea with one of our allies, that we have a lot of intelligence assets, and watching what's happening in China and so on and so forth, Syria and the fall of the Syrian government to drones right over in our neighboring state, which we can't get an answer to. I get a unique perspective about that because of those subjects, because of the committees that I serve on. And so I'm watching out for your interests in that regard. I went to the chairman of the Intelligence Committee and said, look, these are breathtaking failures of the intelligence community. Certainly the leader of Syria, Assad, knew that the rebels were coming. He had time to get to Moscow. How come the United States of America didn't know this was happening? How come we didn't know that the leader of South Korea was going to declare martial law when we worked collaboratively with that leader and all his intelligence agencies? And how come we don't know what's going on with these drones? I requested a briefing 2 weeks ago about this. I got the briefing this week, and it didn't tell me anything I didn't already see out in the public resources. That's unacceptable. And it's first of all, it's unacceptable that we don't know, and it's unacceptable that we're not getting answers. Not only certainly members of Congress that serve on these committees, but as your conduit, the answers that you're demanding. And so I just wanted to kind of talk to you about that to let you know that I am asking the questions that oftentimes you're asking on your behalf. Now, if I get answers, and when I get answers, I certainly pass them off to you. I do want to say this because of this drone stuff especially, and as a guy on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, if there's one flying over your house, just know this: it is a federal violation. It is against federal law to shoot at one of these things or shoot it down. I know there are privacy concerns and they're valid and so on and so forth. I would just say don't take this into your own hands. Call your local law enforcement and let everybody that needs to know that, but don't take this into your own hands. You don't need that kind of trouble. We do have to get that figured out. That's a constant conversation in Washington, D.C. on the Transportation Committee and on other committees like the Intelligence Committee because of what drones are used for. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. So that's the update or kind of the recap for the week. We'll see you again next week. And until then, I hope you are having a safe day and that everything is wonderful where it can be in your life. God bless you.